Welcome everybody to Drunk Dudes in a Gun Room. Man, it's been a minute. I've been on vacation. We're now in season 3 and I am ready to fire it up. As always, the show is still brought to you by Operation Encore. Operation Encore is a 501c helping veterans transition into music careers. They are making rock stars out of veterans every day. So why don't you go on over, check out operationencore.org, hit their little donate button if you can, or at least follow their social media and see what they are doing today. Hey everybody, I got an amazing guest. So I was on a show not too long ago and I absolutely loved the show and I had to ask him to come on. So I have an alarm that's going off, but so I have a guy that is the host of the Fallible Man. All right, David Dowlan. He's the host of the Fallible Man podcast, a men's personal development coach. He also runs a men's conference called the Phoenix Conference. Let's welcome Brent Dowlan. What's up, man?
Hey, Donald. Good to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Man. You know, I guess you should shut off alarms. I'll have to edit that, man. I guess you should shut off alarms. And that alarm was from you for the
I just double checked mine because I knew exactly what that was.
So, but it's all right. That's what editing's for. So, how you been, man?
I'm good, man. So, just living one day at a time. That's all I've adopted over the years. I try and plan ahead, but honestly, right, you just step through one day at a time.
Yep, absolutely, man. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and how the Fallible Man came about?
Okay. So my name is Brent, and I am the Fallible Man because God knows I don't have all the answers. And I wanted to be really clear about that when I started my show. The Fallible Man actually started out as a book project, writing a book, and I started looking at self-publishing, and it's like, oh, if somebody other than my mom and wife are going to read this someday, I should do something to build an audience. So I tried the Insta-famous route, right? Everybody gets Insta-famous. I suck at Instagram. If you follow me on Instagram, you're going to find that out. It's not my greatest gift. And I'm not real fond of social media. So I thought, the trick is getting me to shut up most of the time. So I'll try podcasting, right? I like podcasts. I love listening to podcasts. And man, that was back in September of 2020. We are starting our 5th season, as you and I are talking. And so I love it. I absolutely love doing my show and just helping men try and live their best lives, man, one day at a time.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You know, and your show is an amazing show. If nobody's seen it, they need to go watch it because I had a great time. I've been talking about it. And the one thing we're going to get into today is your 501c because I definitely want to talk about that. I've been telling other podcasters about it because I think it is an amazing idea. But before we do that, why don't we get into your Phoenix Men's Conference? Can you tell everybody a little bit about what that's about? Because I know your show is groomed towards men health and mental awareness and stuff like that. So where did the conference come from? I assume part of the podcast?
It did. My wife and I decided, so like I said, I'm starting season 5. I've racked up hundreds of episodes and I absolutely love it. And we talk about all things men on the show, right? Everything from mental health. I'm a really big mental health proponent about making that a normal conversation for men to talk about their mental health because we're not taken care of in that area, right? It's a taboo subject for men. But we also talk about relationships. We talk about parenting. We talked about bettering your relationship with your partner, your spouse. We talk about side hustles and growing yourself as a professional, doing better habits, right? We talk about the full breadth. And so after I've been doing it for a couple of years, my wife and I felt like we wanted to bring everything we were doing online home, right? We live in a small community in Central Washington, and we got a lot of people in the region around us, but it's a small town of 10,000 or so. in Central Washington, and it's like, we have friends and stuff here who kind of hear what we do, but it's one of those things, like, you're much more likely to get strangers to listen to you than you are your friends a lot of times. And
I can completely relate to that. That is, that is funny you mentioned that because on my last podcast, it was just a podcasters hangout, and one of the topics that they said was it's amazing how non-blood people are closer than most blooded family members. And it is so true, especially trauma. Anybody that's goes through trauma together just becomes bonded. And I think that's the key for veterans. But it really does seem like most people do trust friends more than they do their own families sometimes.
it's kind of sad.
It is.
I want to say, like, historically, it's not new,
Yeah.
which means it's a long running problem. But I'm not sure how to fix that. Right?
It's tough, man. I mean, well, I think a lot of it comes from kind of like when I was going through your podcast. It just seems like some of our traditions as men and head of households have kind of gone away. We've lost touch with father and children type activities because both parents are now working so much and they're not there. The dinners are happening on the fly or in front of a TV or a screen of some sort. So I think as the family members, we're losing contact with each other, and we spend 8 to 12 hours a day working, and 8 hours, hopefully 8 hours, 6 hours sleeping, and just a few hours a day with your family. So it does kind of make more sense. You are kind of with most of your friends, your work friends, anyways, more so than you are with your own family.
Oh
So
yeah, the statistics on that are like disturbingly scary. You
yeah,
you spend more time at work than you do at home. By the time you factor in, like, sleep and necessary things,
yeah,
bills, having cooked food, right? The things that actually take time when you're at home, by the time you stack up all that with sleep and bathrooms and extra activities, like, quality time with your family been severely reduced in the last 50 years.
no,
Uh,
you are 100%. You are 100% correct. So this year, I was going through the website, and this year, the theme for the Phoenix Men's Conference is standing strong in the winds of change. What does that mean to you?
well, first, before we go down the rabbit hole in this one too far, let me say, unfortunately, I have not officially made the announcement.
Oh, okay.
And my speakers, we're having to postpone a year
Oh, okay. Okay.
due to financial reasons. Um, I have paid for this conference out of my pocket for the first 2 years of it.
Yeah.
It is not cheap to put on a good conference.
No,
With
I can vouch.
yeah, with an average cost of around $10,000 to $12,000 a year, uh, I I just don't have the income to do it this year,
No,
which
I
has been a
completely
really
understand.
hard pill to swallow. Like,
Yeah.
I'm really, that's still a really hard pill for me to swallow.
No, I can relate, man. We've got an event coming up this year, and I did not know how expensive these things were. I think we are right at the $18,000 with
Mm,
the bands and everything being paid.
yeah,
So I can relate, man. It's got me nervous as well because it's a lot of money.
I do a youth program that I've been a co-director with for 18 years, a church youth program, and I mean, we do it as cheap as we can, and it's been going for, like, we just celebrated 46 years. My wife and I went to this as children, and now it's come full circle, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but I think our average operating budget to have about 250 to 300 people at this event and the facilities, I think, is around $30,000 a year.
Wow, man.
Um, I have been very blessed with my conference to work with some of, like, the local churches to let me host it at their facilities,
Hmm.
saving me money there. And most of my speakers are guys I've worked with on the podcast, I've developed relationships with, and so they've cut me radical deals. Like, honest to God, like one of my speakers, I couldn't have paid for him ever.
Yeah.
At the rate he charges and gets paid to do keynotes, it's ungodly. It's like, how do I get that gig? I want that job. Right?
Yeah, I don't think I'd be good at it, man. English, I fumble through it, so I don't I don't know that I would be good at doing it, but I do agree. And again, I mean, let's talk a little bit, Hillary Clinton, what she got paid. She went to a conference that everybody makes a big deal about poverty and stuff like that, wearing like a $200,000 jacket.
Well, and the amount she got paid for that
Oh, it's unreal.
speech was insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know exactly which one you're talking about. And it's like, really? You don't see the irony in that?
Yeah. But I would like that gig. I don't know how to, I'd be a first lady if later on I could get paid like that to talk.
Right.
I'm not gonna lie.
Show up, make a 20-minute talk, take off the rest of the year. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So let's get into
home and do something for our local community.
Yeah.
Right? Because I get to talk to some of the most, like, I get to meet some of those incredible people doing this job, right? And right?
Yep.
You just meet incredible people on this journey in podcasting.
Yeah.
My last roster for last year's event, I had 7 published authors and 3 TEDx speakers on the roster.
Wow.
In this tiny little town of 10,000 in the middle of Nowheresville, Washington.
Yeah.
That speaker roster alone, if they had charged me full price, that event would have cost, if my speakers had charged me their standard fees, that event would have cost me somewhere around $60,000.
Wow.
And I was selling tickets at $60 a pop.
Wow. Were you able to sell it out or?
No, it's still a fairly new, young event.
Yeah.
But getting on people's calendars and getting them to understand, right? If you don't know something's valuable,
right,
then you don't know. It's not people, being weird about it. It's, if you don't know, you don't know, right?
I think that's so. With your mission, I think that is something that men themselves don't even realize. It's not even just that other people don't realize that how valuable the man is and his self-worth and everything else. But I don't even think us men understand that either. I think we're so quick to hold emotions in that we start hating ourselves faster than anybody on the outside of us. I really do. Maybe that's just my experience with myself, but it just kind of seems like it.
Oh yeah, for sure. But we tried to take it, like, we added a strongman event to it. We had a novice strongman event during the event. Like, I got a big WWE style championship belt. One of my guys took home.
There you go.
I'm a certified personal trainer as well. Weightlifting is just something I love to do.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing it for years. So I actually have almost enough equipment in my backyard to start my own gym.
Oh, wow.
If I had the startup capital, I would. There's a building around the corner I want to buy. It's always been a dream to own my own gym. So
yeah, man, lift weights.
Future, man. The Fallible Man Gym.
Yep, and lift weights in the afternoon and podcast in the morning, man. You would love to go to work at that point,
Right? There's no.
Hey, have you ever wanted to be a part of this show? You now have the opportunity to be a part of the Two Drunk Dudes in a Gunroom show. We have worked with a nonprofit that is starting called Heroes Voices Media Foundation. We are trying to help this foundation get built. You can be a part of it by sponsoring our show. Go to twodrunkdudesinAgunroom.com, sponsor the show, and you will be a part of an amazing organization that will be helping veterans. Thank you. Now let's get back to the show.
I actually own a company called Stronger Everyday Training.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, we do personal training, but that was the goal, is to build that into by actually like putting a gym here. Because we have a little like Anytime Fitness style gym.
Mm-hmm.
but like I'm into like strongman and powerlifting, like really hefty lifting. And our little Anytime Fitness doesn't do that.
Yeah. I'm
Keep
sure
getting yelled at for lifting real too heavy.
yeah, we got one too, and it's like wall to wall treadmills.
Right? Go outside and walk, man. I don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like their biggest thing, that and the massage. And you'll see people come in and go straight back to the massage area and then walk right back out. You're like, well, I hope you burnt some calories getting there, I guess.
Right?
I'm not one to talk, but I did go there for a while as well. And it was good for my knees and stuff like that to be on the treadmill. But yeah, it's definitely not what you're talking about.
Nah, I get out during the warmer parts of the year, right? We actually just got like 3 inches of snow today. But during the warmer parts of the year, I get up and just go walking in the mornings.
Yeah.
My oldest daughter is turning 12 tomorrow, and she'll get up and go with me, and we'll walk 2 or 3 miles or something. We did the Stop Soldier Suicide fundraiser, Ruck fundraiser last year together. So my 11-year-old was carrying like 18 pounds, and I had a 40-pound pack, and we get up, rack up 2 to 4 miles every morning together for the month of April or whatever it was. And we enjoyed sharing that together.
Oh yeah, I bet. My son was big into my son was big into cross country, and that was my first lesson in realizing that at some point the kid does take over. And I was always good at running in the military, and I told him when I got back from that deployment I was going to race him, and yeah, he walked away from me like I was nothing. Man, that kid could run. I was really impressed. I mean, I think at state he ran the mile in like what was it, like 9 something? No, not mile, the 2 mile. It was like 9:50 or something like that. I mean, just unreal. And yeah, I was never there. I was like an 11 kind of guy.
I was gonna say 20 years ago.
Yeah. Now, I was impressed because I did 2 miles on the treadmill in 22 minutes. So, I mean, there's no way I would even attempt it now. But no, you're right. So yeah, you were a military guy too.
Yeah, for a short time.
Yeah.
I come from a military family, and it would just seem like the right choice.
Yeah. Was it Army?
I was Air Force. So we have a great fight going on because I have a brother who's Navy and a brother who's Army.
Okay. Yeah.
I was in the Air Force. My sister actually has an advanced degree in defense and strategic studies. She should be working at a think tank, but then she married a guy who didn't want to move, so she can't use her degree.
Man. Yeah. I think that's the first person I've ever heard that had a degree in that.
Yeah, it's a really rare program you have to be accepted to. There's only a couple universities involved. Back during the Bush administration, she was going to this master's program, and she came home one Saturday. I'm like, hey, I thought you had a lecture today. She's like, oh, yeah, but they had to cancel the lecture. The teachers had to go brief Congress. and honest goodness, that like over the course of her master's degree, that happened multiple times.
Wow.
Go brief the defense subcommittee or something like that. It's like, wow, if I had a dime for every time I got class canceled, right?
No kidding, man. Yeah.
That's one of those you hear very often.
No, yeah. And think about the stories, when they come back, you're like, oh, I can't wait to hear what they talked about. And you're like, so how did it go? And they're like, we can't talk to you.
Right.
Did you do your quiz?
Oh, yeah. And one of our professors actually left to be the secretary to the attorney general for the Bush administration. And then he didn't like the posting, so he became the secretary to the Secretary of Defense. And it's like, first world problems, man.
Yep.
How many professors got that argument? But yeah, no, it gets really entertaining. We get the military jokes going every now and then, between the branches.
Yeah. You probably get quite a bit of them. They probably gang up on you, don't they?
They don't mess with me too much. I went special forces when I got in.
Okay.
And so they now I say that I qualified, I started training, I got injured, and life went to shit after that. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, can I swear on the show?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely, man.
I try and be cognizant of other people's shows. Yeah, life went downhill really badly after I got hurt. If anybody, I'm sure you have people listening who have gotten hurt in the military. You know how fast you get forgotten, become an
Oh,
addict.
absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely. One of the reasons why, nobody says there's anything wrong mentally because of that stigma right there. So when you said special forces, was you going to be a PJ? Is that where you're?
I was going to TAC-P, Tactical Air
Okay.
Control Party.
Yep.
The Air Force has PJs, Tactical Air Control Party, and combat controllers.
Okay. Yep.
And so I was going TAC-P.
Okay. Yeah.
The program.
There was, a lot of people don't know about the Air Force and that side of the house. They really don't. All they think about is the nice cafeterias and chow halls and stuff like that, but there is another side to them. We had a weather controller, I believe. I don't know what his actual MLS was, but he there was one with us when I was in the 160th. No matter where you went, he went, and they would rotate him out for deployments. But yeah, he was on ground with us all the time.
Our sergeants were intense because TAC-P is they get stationed with everything from like the Army Elite Special Forces down to armored divisions and stuff like that.
Yep.
And so our sergeants were like seriously intense because their idea was, hey, you're not ever going to get out PT'd working with the Army, because that was just unacceptable if we couldn't smoke somebody into the ground no matter who they were.
Yep.
And so PT was intense every day, and all of my sergeants, like, it was so cool to watch Air Force uniforms with Ranger tags.
Oh yeah.
Anybody from outside the branches would look at it and be like, that's stolen valor or something if you looked at their uniforms.
Yeah. I've never seen it
go together, right? But we had all of my instructors were Halo certified, fast attack certified. All of them had all the different weapons that you guys get to train with in the Army.
Yeah.
We had 3 of them who were special forces deployable with the Army, and 1 that had his Ranger tag.
Wow.
And it was cool. That's why I went to TAC-P, right? I got all the lifestyle of the Air Force. I got the better food, better lodging. I still got to go play and do all the fun things.
Yeah. Yeah, man. That'd be a good gig, man. I really should have went to more recruiters than I went
to. They came into boot camp and made that pitch. I'm like, hell yeah. Wait, I get to sleep in a nice place because I had been in my brother's detachment, dude.
Yeah.
His barracks sucked.
Yeah. There was a guest on, and I can't remember. I don't even want to quote the stat because I'd mess it up, but they talked about how many of the Army barracks they found mold actually in. They're the old concrete barracks, and they would find mold up on, because they're all drop ceilings, so there'd be mold up in the above them and everything else. And
been around for a long time too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so I can even remember some where like people walked in, they're like, what is that on the wall? And I'm like, I don't know, it won't come off. I've tried to clean it. But yeah, that's it's just the perks of being in the Army. You get all the allergens.
Oh yeah, no, we had the good stuff. I had a general stop and ask me directly to start chow hall when I was at the Air Force Special Operations Base. Now, not everybody knows the number 1 rated chow hall in the United States military is on the Air Force Special Operations Base.
Oh, I believe that. I mean, unlimited budget.
Oh yeah,
and it's already the Air Force. So, I mean, you guys pretty much have an unlimited budget, anyways. But
here where I was a little E3, just I was on crutches at the time, hopping through the parking lot, and the car pulls up, right? And the car.
Yep.
It's like, bam, snapping to attention on a set of crutches sucks. And so like I snapped to attention, and this like major sticks his head out of the car. And it's like, oh, thank you. I was like, yeah, I'm saluting you, not the 2-star general car, but it's you.
Yeah.
The general's sitting, across from him in the back. He's like, "Hey, can you tell me where this is?" I was like, "Yes, sir. 2 parking areas down." So just right over there. But I mean, this guy was eating chow at the same place I ate it every day.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, that tells you something. I knew it was decent food, but wow. And then I
Yeah.
got stationed on an army base after I
Yeah.
got hurt. They went to cross train me into another program, and I got sent out to Fort Eustis,
Yeah. Yeah. Fort
Virginia.
Eustis. Yep.
I'd never been in an army chow hall before, and the reaction when like I was going through the chow hall line, and I like to lift heavy things, right? So I
Uh-huh.
eat a lot of protein. And the reaction on my face had to be priceless because I'm going through this line. I'm like, yeah, I'll take one of those and one of those. And the guy's like, you can have one protein.
Yep.
I was like, do you see the bars are over here, not up here?
Yeah.
I'm different than you. He's like, you can have one. Like, keep going down the line, right? I was like, I'll take some of that and some of that. They're like, you can have one vegetable. I was like, okay, I get the protein thing. It's vegetables. Like, seriously? You're going to limit how many vegetables I can have?
Yep. Same with the starch. One starch.
Right? Yeah,
Yep.
I was like, wonder. I'm so glad I went to Air Force. Like, I started eating at Taco
Yep.
Bell a lot at the PX.
Oh, I believe it, man. Yeah, I'm telling you, the first time I deployed with the 160th, the E6 there was like so excited because the next day they were going to open up the MKT, and I'm just looking at him like, "What are you so excited about?" He said, "Man, I'm gonna be there first thing in the morning." Because up to that point, it was 3 MREs a day. That's all we ate. And I said, "For what?" He goes, "It's going to be real food." I said, "No, it's going to really be an MRE in a can in boiling water. It's sea rats. It is not real food." He came back so mad. He said, "The eggs were green." I said, I know they are, man. That's why I slept in. It wasn't worth it. But yeah, I people don't know what we go through to eat, you know.
And some of the things are surprising though, right? Like, I knew I was probably in the wrong lineup of where I wanted to be. I asked if we could go through the obstacle course again in basic
Mhm.
training because we only got to go through it once. That was the best day of basic training. Like, I still, like, I'm 44 years old. I still go do like Spartan races and Tough Mudders and stuff like that. I
Mhm.
love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That was the best day of basic training. I got to go run the obstacle course and I had a great time. And all these people were like, oh, I'm having the time of my life. I'm screwing my instructor. He had a date writing. He managed to get a date writing on the TI for the obstacle course. She was
Nice. Yeah.
and my drill sergeant was a handsome, well built man,
Mhm.
and he managed to goad her into buying him dinner because she's like, "Oh, someone's getting wet." He's like, "No one in my unit's getting wet." She's like, "Somebody always falls." He's like, "You're not hearing me. We were his first basic training unit ever. We were his first unit as a training instructor."
Yeah.
And he's like, "My guys aren't getting wet." And he managed to goad her into a steak dinner over it. So I'm hanging like I'm out on the rope. And he's like, "We're going to do it the standard way. So no one gets like, I'm hanging by one arm and one leg. I knocked my hat off and caught it down just above the water. I'm like, I'm good, Sarge, putting it back on my head. He's like, Dowlan. I did a lot of push ups for that. A lot of push ups.
Yeah, man.
I
You
loved it. I was like, I'm in the wrong, I'm on the wrong branch.
Yeah, man. You were like a military cock blocker, man. You controlled his destiny in your
Right?
hands.
It's the only time in basic training you feel powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and then you pay for it later. That's just the way it works.
But
So let's talk a little bit about your 501c. I
it's
believe it is called Read Me a Story, Daddy. Is that right?
It's called Read Me a Story, Dad. We have not officially gotten our 501c3 yet.
Okay.
I'm
You're in the
working
same
on
boat as me. We're
Yeah.
we're working on it too.
Yeah, it's called Read Me a Story, Dad. And it's really a passion project for me
Yeah.
because there are just so many homes where either both parents are working or, in this day and age, both parents are working multiple jobs sometimes, or it's a single parent home for whatever reason, right? I'm not making any judgments about people's situations.
Yeah. It could be
Right?
a death.
Life happens, but there are so many single parent homes, and God knows they're super busy, right? Trying to make ends meet and get by and do everything they got to do. It's hard enough with both parents there, much less a single parent home.
Yeah.
But there is so much value in reading to children. It increases their love of learning. It increases their excitement about reading. It increases their ability to process things. It sparks their imagination. Like, there's just
Yep.
no end to the positivity of reading to kids. And so we're just reading books to kids. I mean, it's not rocket science. It's not complicated.
Yeah.
It's just but it's dads or granddads, because I wanted to step the other leg into that and show kids that there are men outside of their family who legitimately just care.
Yeah.
Right? That positive male influence. And
You
there's no
know,
agenda, but this is some guy I don't know who's willing to read me a book.
yep. And you know that's one thing that I liked about it when you told me about it is I love the idea of your podcast having a purpose. And for me to be able to do that, now my podcast has a purpose. There's a good thing coming from it. It's not just talking about different stuff and the normal podcast. It's making a difference in somebody's life. And that's what I like about it. So when you told me about it, I was like, I'm in. So I encourage anybody out there that is a male and wants to get involved to definitely do it, because I love the idea.
And you say it's about having a purpose through your podcast. Um, you don't know. I've spoken at a podcast conference before. I'm
Mhm.
speaking again next April at a podcast conference. And I'm actually, this Thursday, I'm going to our high school to talk about podcasting with a young group of students there who are looking at starting a school podcast, right?
Okay. Hey, let me tell you guys about an amazing organization that is being built right now. It is called Heroes Voices Media Foundation, and it is an organization that is using media to help veterans express themselves and tell their stories using media, as in podcasting, like the Two Drunk Dudes in a Gunroom show. It is also using music, like Gunroom Radio, and it is also using books like what is coming soon with Warrior Words. So if you would like to help, go check out Heroes Voice Media Foundation.org. You can find it at our Facebook page, and you can also find it in the description of this episode. So let's get back to the show.
One of the things, I've consulted probably on a half a dozen or a dozen podcasts to help people start their podcast. One of the differences, right? Because technically there's like 3 million podcasts registered in the world.
Right.
Now, that's an astronomical number. However, the actual more accurate number is there are roughly 47,000 active podcasts, right?
Yeah.
Because you've got churches who upload a sermon every week, and that's their podcast.
Right.
And you have a ridiculous amount of podcasts who suffered pod fade, right? Or they had a little too much to drink one night. It's like, man, we should start a show, right? We could
Yep.
talk about this forever. And they got 4 episodes in and realized they had nothing else to say about it.
Yep.
Or they sobered up and realized it was a stupid idea, right? Just to start with. And so you got a lot of those, or all these registered miscellaneous podcasts.
Yep.
But working inside the podcast community, knowing a lot of other podcasters, the podcasts that stick around are the podcasts that serve a purpose. And that can be that's a broad range, right?
Yeah.
Yours serves a very, very specific community that's awesome, right? That's an amazing thing. My main show, we're very specific in our mission.
Mm-hmm.
This Read Me a Story Dad podcast is very specific in his mission,
Yep.
right? It has a purpose to it. And the shows
Yep.
that stick around are shows that go, how are we going to serve somebody? Who are we going to serve? Right.
Yep.
And so that was just, it's like, okay, what can I do? I can't fix everything. I can't
Right.
change necessarily. I'm trying with my show, the Fallible Man podcast. I'm working on fixing some of these issues that are breaking up homes and getting more dads involved in their families and stuff like that. But I'm trying to fix it from that end. But what can I do in the meantime? Well, if I wasn't here to read to my kids, who'd be reading to my kids? My wife would do what she could.
Yeah.
She'd read to them. But, I'm looking at like, what can I control? What can I do? And I mean, resource wise, I'm already set up for my show, right? I have all this nice equipment because I already do this other show.
Yeah.
So how much harder is it for me to just go into my kids' room and pull a book off their bookshelf? Because my wife and I are both big book people. So we have tons of children's books. How hard is it for me to just go and turn on the camera? I can edit one of the shows in 10 minutes because we don't do anything fancy with it, right? Like no agenda. So it's just straight reading. I have the intro and outro recorded. So
yep.
It takes me, I did tomorrow's episode all said and done, took me like an hour.
Yeah.
But it's there forever now.
Yep.
On YouTube and on audio for a kid to be able to go and find that. And I've got some of them that have got 20 views. I've got some of them that have got 4,000 views.
And that is awesome. And that's exactly what I meant by, not just a purpose as in like your podcast has a reason and a goal, but I think that with what we're doing, you should be giving back.
Okay.
And that's what I think is great about the podcasting community, because that's one of the communities I found that is really about giving back. I mean, even some of the Facebook groups aren't even so toxic compared to some of these other groups that do other things, and I think that is extremely important, and I'm not saying that every person that podcasts that you talk to is in that category, but generally I have found that the podcasting community likes to help.
Oh yeah.
And that's what I think is great. And that was one of my goals for this year, was I wanted my podcast to be a part of stuff to give back, not just with that, but with what I'm doing, with the veterans and everything else too. I wanted other people to see that you can get stuff from this. And that's what I think is amazing about the podcasting community.
Oh yeah.
Well,
and that's how you met. Honestly, that's how you and I met. My wife found your podcast.
Yeah, so, that is right. I forgot that. Yeah.
My wife does a lot of screening for my guest.
Mm-hmm.
So guys, I'm on my 5th season, done, I think I've crossed 300 plus episodes at this point.
Wow.
I have never actually asked somebody to be on my show until you.
Wow, man, I am honored.
And like everybody who's been on my show has hit me up to be on my show. But my wife found your show, and both of us are very passionate about the veteran community. And my story has a weird, sad tale that I know way too many other veterans who know that tale really well.
Yeah.
But I have so many veterans in my life. Most of my closest friends are ex-military, and I've always been very passionate about it. My dad was military, my grandfathers were military, brothers, right? So this is something that's very near and dear to my heart. And my wife came across your show, and I went, yes, here is somebody who is desperately trying to serve his community. And the fact that community is vets was even near and dear to my heart. You weren't just trying to make a difference in your immediate community. It's the community I care about.
That is awesome, man. And I think it's important, regardless of what community it is to just give back. You'll find, especially if you're seeking some therapy, there's therapy in helping others. There really is. And I think a lot of people don't understand that, you know. So what you're doing, I found a group therapy called the Warriors Way Mindset, and it's strictly for men as well. And so with what you're doing and helping men, I could relate to that because I was part of a therapy that really helped me, and it wasn't a 501c, it was a for-profit company, and but they were great people, man, and they really taught me a lot about myself that I didn't even know.
Mm-hmm.
um, and it taught me about some stuff I didn't want to know, but um, you know, those are the things that you need to learn about yourself, you know, and I think reaching men is kind of tough in its own class. You know, do you have a hard time trying to get people to understand, what you're trying to say because their egos are in the way, or they just don't want to admit that they're broken?
So when I initially told my wife, this is what I want to do, and understand my wife is vested. She is the 50% owner of our company.
Hmm.
Uh, she is in this with me 100%. But when I told her what I wanted to do and who I wanted to target, she went, "Really? You had to pick the hardest possible niche to crack. Ever.
Yeah.
Like you could have done this or aimed at these people. No, you had to pick the hardest possible group to get through to."
Yep.
Um, but it's so worth it because not a lot of people are willing to ride that out because it
Yeah.
is very frustrating, right? We're stubborn. I'm a stubborn dude. I'll be the
Yep.
first to admit it. And
I
me admitting that I may not know it all or need help. um, but when it has those moments. So at my last conference, right, I had a gentleman who I met. I was introduced by a mutual friend at a kid's birthday party. Right, our kids were friends with the same kids. So this friend introduced us since we were both there, and she had told him a little bit about what my wife and I were doing. And so he asked me, well, what's this conference? She told me about this conference you do. So I started talking to him about it a little bit. And he was like, okay. So we kind of continued this. Then he found out he had to pay for the conference. Right.
Yeah.
And, I was like, hey, man. He's like, and I could hear the shame in his voice. And it hit me so hard. I could hear the shame in his voice. He's like, I just am in a spot I can't. I said, brother, you don't. There will be a ticket at the desk when you get there with your name. The only thing stopping you from coming is you.
That is awesome.
And he's like, I said, look, we've all been there.
Yep.
I've been there very recently. Trust me, we've all been there.
Yep.
So just show up. That's all I'm asking. Right. So he came to the conference. It's a Friday night and all day Saturday. And I got up and did the closing for the conference last year. It's like 7:45, 8 o'clock Saturday night. I got up, did the closing, and then started making a beeline for the back so I could make sure and say goodbye to everybody and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm halfway through the auditorium and he steps in front of me and just throws his arms around me. And he is almost in tears. And he's like, you saved my life. And we had already, had some conversation. So I stepped back. I was like, no, you saved your life. You showed up for you.
Yep.
You came here. You showed up. You made that choice. You didn't have to be here. I said, now the big question is, what are you going to do tomorrow? What are you doing Monday when you got to go back to work? Because you showed up. The hard part is going to be taking this with you forward.
Yep.
Right. So I connected him with guys that I knew he would connect with really well.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't stay in close contact with him. So about 7 months after the event, I'm helping our mutual friend decorate for something at the community center. And she's like, hey, have you kept up with so-and-so? I was like, no, I connected him with people I knew he would connect well with that could support him and his needs. She's like, since the conference, he went to rehab and got clean. He had problems with alcohol. So he stopped drinking, got help on that. He had fixed his marriage. He had become a much more present father. He has stabilized because I guess he was on the rocks at work because of his drinking.
Mm-hmm.
He had ironed out all of that.
Dude,
in
that is awesome.
6 or 7 months since the conference. And I looked my wife in the eye and I said, that's it right there.
Yep.
One person at a time. That's always been our motto with everything we're doing. If we can make a difference, if I do a show, I don't care if 10,000 people listen to it or one. If one person hears that show and it gives them that bump, that edge, that insight, that thought that they need to take that next step to improve their life, then everything's worth it.
Yeah.
That one story, man, that's kept me, that story, I'll be going on that for years. Because I don't get to hear most of those stories, right? As a podcast, right? You don't hear from a lot of your audience.
No.
But because of that conference, because of that work that started on my podcast and went to here in the conference, this is a member of my community, and his life is 100 times better because he prioritized what mattered and took the steps to get there.
That is awesome, man. And I can completely relate with what you're saying about when you hear the success story. I recently hired a gentleman that was ex-military, and about 2 weeks after I hired him, he made the comment. He said, "Hey, you're Donald Dunn." I said, "Well, I'm glad you know your boss, man. Congratulations." And he goes, "No," he said, "You got that car out there that says 2 drunk dudes in a gun room in the back window." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Before I started working here, another military guy told me I need to check out this podcast." And he said, "I've been listening to it." He said, "I absolutely love it." He said, it helps me. Yeah, I can relate to a lot of that stuff. And I'm just like you, man. It shocked me that I actually got to meet somebody that actually was a listener, and I got to see the benefits to it. Because like you said, you don't get to see it.
Yeah.
People
don't understand, like, podcasting is a lot of fun. Like, it's so rewarding to me. I love doing it, but it's actually a really lonely profession.
It is. Yep.
Right. Most people don't know. We spend most of our time in closed rooms.
Yep.
With just us and a camera and a microphone at best.
Yep.
And that might be in production, or that might be, actually shooting, but post-production. But this is like, I spend most of my life right now in this 8.5 by 8.5 room.
Yeah. And that would be the only thing I would say. If anybody's ever asked me, would you ever want your show to be big and famous? And the only thing I would say that I would like about that is the fact of having the money to be able to fly people in and do your podcast in person. I would love to be able to get rid of the screens and be able to actually communicate and talk to people and hear their stories and feel their emotions, and just on, my little budget of what I got, that's not going to happen. I did get that benefit though. I did have a guest on that I met through Podmatch, and then I realized in his bio that he wasn't far from me. He was in Branson and I was in Rolla. And so I asked him, I said, "Okay, can we cancel this and do it on a weekend? And I'll drive down there and we'll do it in person in your gym." And it's one of the best podcasts. I loved it. I wish everyone could be like that now, and I don't know, man, maybe one day I'll figure out the secret sauce and be able to fly people in on the 2 drunk dudes in a gun room jet,
You figure that out, be sure and let me know. Because one of my favorite shows, honestly, the podcast that got me started on podcasts was Drinking Bros. When I first with them.
Yep. I haven't listened to a lot of their shows, but I've listened to a few.
That was the podcast that, like, I listened to Drinking Bros for years.
Yeah.
I'd have it playing in the background. A lot of people, if they've listened to it, knows a lot of the guys who started that have a military background. One of the main hosts, like it's kind of dwindled down to 2 hosts usually. One of the hosts, I know Dan was military, but most of the guys who actually helped start that are the guys who started Black Rifle Coffee.
Okay. Yep.
Right. It's the same group that started Black Rifle Coffee are the same guys that started Drinking Bros.
Okay. I didn't know that part, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Like so like they have this weird little group. So Article 15 Clothing, Lead Swingers Whiskey, Drinking Bros Podcast, Black Rifle Coffee, and there are several other smaller businesses that this group of guys have all started. And one of them owns, like Matt Best owns most of Article 15, him and Jared Taylor. But they were also 2 of the original Drinking Bros. And they're also owners of Black Rifle Coffee and invested in Lead Slinger Whiskey. And so, right, they just keep building these businesses that are very veteran centric. And so early on, like it was very like most of the humor in there was military humor. And it was at a time when it was really like it was hard to find military humor.
Yep.
And I still like I have a friend who's an ex-Marine, or as he would say, a non-active Marine, because there's no ex-Marines. It's one of my best friends out here, and like him and I can just sit there. Like we wouldn't have to talk. We can just sit there, hang out, right?
Yep.
Because there's that camaraderie of they get it that nobody else has.
Yep.
You know, my story in the military is very different than my brother's story or my other brother's story in the military, right?
Yep.
But there's a camaraderie across there that people outside of that don't get.
No, you're absolutely right.
And this own sense of humor. So,
yep.
Unless you've been around military guys, that sense of humor, like most people are like, "What's wrong with you people?" It's like, "Come on, that's funny as hell."
Yep.
No, that's just morbid and weird because it's a little dark and it's a little risque, but so I would do it for that.
And you know, that was kind of a goal of mine that just recently happened. It's funny you said that because over my vacation, I had tried for years to get some comedians involved, some veteran comedians, and do a comedy channel. And man, they're just a weird bunch. You know, they really are, because they are all over TikTok and social media and everything. But for me to say, hey, so email me the video you just did, and I will pull the audio off of it and we'll put it on the radio. Oh, that's a lot of work, man. It's an email. I just finally gave up. I couldn't get nobody. And I had a lady reach out to me. She found me somehow. I don't even know how she did it. But she's a veteran. She's an Air Force veteran. And she pays to bring veteran comedians that are trying to get known to Vegas, and pays for them to perform on different sets.
Oh, that's awesome.
And yeah, it was an amazing idea. And she was like, is there any way you could do? And I said, I have been trying to find somebody to do this for years. I said, you're not going to back out of this now. I said, the radio station will be created tonight. I said, all I need is content. And man, she made some phone calls, and veterans started sending me their stuff, and I've uploaded, and we now have a comedy channel, and it's all veteran comedians, and it's amazing.
Oh, I love this radio station.
Yeah, it's you can go to gunroomradio.com, and any of the genre channels you can hit from there. And if you have Android, you can also download Too Drunk to, or Gunroom Radio, and the app's there too, you know. So but yeah,
after our last show.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Oh yeah, like I'm a fan. I bookmarked it after our last show. It's my favorite station while I'm sitting at my desk now.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. And but I think that's awesome that, just how the networking happens is somebody finds you and then bam, something's created, So yeah, it's absolutely amazing, man. Hey, so why don't you take a second and tell everybody where they can find you, and the services that you provide? Because I know I've been looking through your website. You got a lot of stuff going on, man.
I do.
So take that moment and tell everybody how they can find you.
So I have a ridiculous amount of contacts. The easiest way is to go to thefallibleman.com. And there's a link there to my podcast as well. My podcast has its own website, which is the falliblemanpodcast.com. So, not really original, pretty easy. I tried to make it easy to find. But if you go to thefallibleman.com, I actually offer a plethora of services because being a podcaster, you build a lot of skills. So I do consulting for podcasting, and I also do freelance audio editing for podcasting. But I also do coaching. I work with men specifically around just personal development and relationships. I kind of dive into, I used to do just personal development, but my life is built around relationships, and having strong relationships helps the whole personal development thing in a huge way. So I do both relationship coaching for men and personal development coaching, one-on-one and group coaching. I actually don't have it up on my website right now because I've taken a step back from that temporarily while I'm figuring out some finance issues. But thefallibleman.com, and then I'm at the Fallible Man on Instagram and TikTok. I spend most of my time on Instagram. I have a Facebook account as well. You can find me under David Brent Dowlan or the Fallible Man. Or no, Fallible Man. Sorry. I screwed up Facebook. I'm really bad at the social media thing when I started. And so my page is Fallible Man instead of the Fallible Man because I did it wrong and they won't let me fix it. But you can find me at the Fallible Man. Go to my website, www.thefallibleman.com, and you'll find links to everything. You'll find links to Read Me a Story, Dad. You'll find links to the various services I offer, links to my regular podcast, and anything else you want to, like, you can just reach out to me straight from there. But man, we're just here, no BS, no agenda. We're just here to try and help men make their lives what they want them. I believe you have a purpose. I believe that you're important. I believe that you matter to the world, and you reaching your purpose is important. And so we're just here to help walk with men along the way. And if I can't point you in the right direction, I guarantee I know people at this point who can. That's the benefit of being a podcaster. I know a ridiculous amount of coaches at this point.
Yeah. That is awesome, man. And I definitely myself will be reaching out because, like I said, I've been going through some of your services and there's some things that I could use. And I'm sure that some of the other podcasters that are on my little network of the MUPS Military United podcast streams, I'm sure they will be able to reach out too. So, Brett, I love having this conversation. I had a great time, man. I love your show. I'm a fan. So I encourage everybody else to go and listen to the show. You'll have a great time. You all take care and be safe.
Cheers.